Hello, my educated friends. This week's Bitcoin story is going to be all about the 50 simple period moving average. Woo! Nice to see you all in the chit chat box there. Welcome to the new subscribers. We've got Sean Carpenter, Nick Olas, for example. Good to see you folks. Welcome to the show. Let's dive into it. Hello. So, Bitcoin, the story, the 50 simple period moving average, that's the story. Hiya, French Toasty, hiya. And what do I mean? What do I mean by that story? What do I mean? How dare I say that simple story is a simple story and not give the simple story to make the story simpler? Typical. Okay, so the reason why 4 hour time frame, you can see that's kind of where we're getting support, sandwiched between the 200 simple moving average and the 50 on the 4 hour time frame. Whoop whoop. But that's not the end to the story. If we go to the daily time frame, we can see that this is where the prices broke down below and have found resistance since. So there was support, sort of, then it became resistance. That's the daily time frame on Bitcoin. Whoop whoop. Now let's make it a little bit more interesting though, okay? Because, well, the story really here, when I make my little thing, when I make my little video to put out to all the looters and moochers, I'll be talking about the 50 simple, and I'll be saying the story is being that, you know, we've seen the prices dropping down below the 50 simple before during this upward trend, and that when you know, they move back above the 50 simple and can kind of confirm above it, we'll get a nice rise up. That'll be what I'll say in my video later, okay? But that's the basis of the story, okay? So I'll make it even more interesting in just a second after I do the because there's something even more interesting about this 50 simples. Actually is super interesting. Actually is interesting, right? And I'll tell you what that is after I've done the wrap up from last week. That's right, because that's what we like to do on this show, because we have got integrity and standards and whatnot. So what we do is we talk about what we talked about last week to make sure that we talked about everything, kept everything nice and correct. Yeah, kept everybody so everyone watching now knows what we say in the rest of the show will also be good. They'll know that because we review what we talked about last week. And my goodness, the screen is cluttered right up there. I did a lot of explaining last week. A lot. What the story boiled down to was these 3 trend lines. 1, 2, 3. 3 trend line EOLAs. And I said in last week's show, go on the 4 hour time frame so you can see the drawings and everything, how, you know, what could happen is we could break out above that and then come back down for a double bottom before continuing on up. So bring up a different Bitcoin chart so that it's not so busy. This Kraken one, for example. So last week's show was this was the chat. Here's the trend line, and we said it could go down and then come out double bottom and then find its way back on up, and that's exactly what's happened. Very nice. Very, very, very nice. Okay, so last week was perfectly accurate. Now, there's been an awful lot of time spent up here at this point. I'll put that into context in just a moment. But just so that folks know that we're kind of being audited the whole way along, we spoke about, in every one of the live shows, we talked about the kind of the chances of it kind of just going sideways in this area. But because we were doing outreach videos, we also included a story one week, which was about a equilateral triangle pattern, and I had a little kind of mouse drawn on there. That's the mouse. And we spoke about how you'd need to look to the volume to see if prices were breaking outside of this. And we had targets on here in either direction. And then the next week, we noticed that actually the pattern had evolved and it was ascending triangle, and it could break out that way, but we were very cautious about the ability for it to break down, and if it did break down, where it would go to and so on, which then happened. And it formed a low near the prior low. Then it broke outside of the trend line, came down, double bottomed, and has gone back up since. And that leaves us where we are now today. You are here. So we've been keeping everybody, entirely informed along the way here during this sideways price action. That's what all this education has been about. So last week, one of the things we talked about was 58k and the worry that I had about the prices going to 58k. What could happen if they did? So was this the one I drew it on? Yeah, here's where I drew it, or I drew the line in the end. This particular chart. So we're also concerned about 58k because of the reasons why if it drops down below there, it'd be taking out significant area of, and that 58k itself. There's a little reason why it could get support there, but generally speaking, it's quite weak. So the actual threat could really come in at 49k. Broad stroke story on that again is, so long as we're above that zone there, we're doing all right in terms of price, and until we're above this zone at the top, we are waiting to see things break out. The major news on Bitcoin is, since the last week, is that here onwards, this whole area of price action, just in this white box I've drawn on here, is post-halving world. We live in a post-halving world over here, boys and girls. So we've caught up with last week, and I wanted to do a couple of the ETFs because this is where the 50 simple moving average on becomes interesting. Again, if I go back up to the daily time frame to give you a reminder, here on the Bitcoin spot chart, the 50 simple period moving average is resistance right now. The story for Bitcoin is that yes, it's come down below. Here's the moving average here. I'm just drawing over the top of it to help you see it. Yes, we've come down below the moving average. Yes, we've come back up and found a resistance at a test. However, that's okay so long as we do go on to bust up above this 50 simple moving average. Then the longer term trend and chances of us taking out this power high, moving up to high prices, remains perfectly intact. That's the basic story, with a reminder to folks who feel a bit kind of depressed about things that we have been in this similar sort of situation before. Of course, it did manage to stick at the 50 simple, but then when it did move on up, it got a nice rise up. So could we get a nice rise up here after if we break it? Yes, we could. And then here is the interesting thing, and you can see here's the 50 simple period moving average. Just drawing over the top of it there on that chart. Let's bring up another ETF. Starting with a couple of ETFs here that are actually, easier to translate into the current price. This one here at 63.91, for example. It's easy to translate that into the current spot Bitcoin price. So what do we see here about this one? What do we see? Sarah, what do you see in the audience there? Because I see that you saw the moving average. What do we see here is that this is acting as support. It's acting as support, right? So the ETFs are acting, there's support here on the 50 simple moving average on the ETFs. That's what we can see. The price has come down, tried to break it, bounced back up, back down for a retest of the 50 simple period moving average. Which is freaking interesting, right? And I think that means that the question for us is going to be right now, in terms of the next chart to look at, is where is the price on the CME futures chart in relation to the 50 simple period moving average, since over here it's below it, and on the ETFs it's above it. Where is it? Where is it there? Let's just go and look. So I'm sure people are interested. They should be. Let's just see. Okay, so it's much more similar to the ETFs. The price is this is the moving average here. It came down and it did push down below it, back up above it, back down, and it's actually currently just below it. But it's much more similar positioned to the ETFs, whereas on spot prices it's above, acting as resistance, and on the ETFs it's acting as support. There's in between. Interesting, right? Interesting. So that I think that is enough of a thing. I suppose that's enough of a thing to make a video about for my sort of looters and butchers crowd that aren't watching the live show. What comes first, the horse or the cart? It's a good chicken and egg question, that one. Other salient comments are, we have, I like bread, I love lamp. Sarah in the chat is, of course, seeing the moving average and likes that it is a very supportive line. She says that she supports the line supporting the price. So she's in support of what she's seeing there. That's good to know. And let's see what else. Oh my goodness, your wisdom teeth are giving you problems. Hi, Sean. Hi, French toast. And the marvelous Chardonnay Flasher is with us in the chat as well. She says, this is very interesting. So, yeah, so that's the current situation with Bitcoin, right? What else is the current situation with Bitcoin? Well, we're here, so let's do the in-depth technical analysis. I might have written that in my title for today's video, maybe. In which case, let's do it. Over here on the mess chart. Back on the mess chart. Very good. We'll take off last week's white squiggly line prediction, which was obviously absolutely fantastic. Let's see as well. Oh, that's the current position. So there you go. Doing fantastic. In fact, if you're taking that suggested trade setup, you'd have closed at the perfect point to close it. That was nice from last week. Very nice. Shall we leave this? What's it called? Fibonacci retracement on the background. I think we'll leave that there. Just leave it. Price finding resistance at that 236. That was something I wanted to talk about before the start of the show, but I forgot it during my excitement post the pushing the button to go live. Live. It's so exciting. Right. So the problem with the chart right now is not really visible in the daily time frame, because on the daily time frame it's done well, right? Came back down for the double bottom, moved up, came back down, and that's the bigger scale picture. Small picture, it moved outside, came back down, quick double bottom, and off we went. You can't see it there though. But on the big picture, what I wanted to talk about was how long this has been going on for. So I just wanted to measure that for people. So we came up towards the actual high, the top of the market, the high, and we're now, since the high, this is roughly 42 days since the high. So I wanted to then look back at previous highs and see how long it was since the high that we dropped down. Well, here actually you can see, this is the other thing I want to talk about. I've worked my way back into remembering. You can see here it was only a couple of weeks after that high. Let's see here, how long was that? That was 29 days. 29 days after the high. So it did get about a month there after the high before prices really, started dropping all the way down. So why do I bring that up? because over here in the recent price action, you'll have felt like, see if I can get a bigger version of me here just to alert everybody. This one? Yeah, look. So over here in the background, you can see the chart, right? And you can see that there was a high here. Oops, that's going to mess everything up. You can see there was a high here, and it's been 44 days since the high. Or 42 days since the high, something like that. And what we can see about the previous highs was that the high, and then quite soon after the prices dropped down. Then there was the high, and quite soon after the prices dropped down. Over here, we had a high, but then we didn't have any tests above that high. Didn't have any tests above that high. And it's been 42 days since that high came in. So on the one hand, I'm worried about this. It could easily turn out to be Wyckoff type distribution. It looks enough like that right now for it to warrant the mentioning it to people and telling you to be aware and to not, to be aware of the fact that the market could completely tank from here. That could actually happen. That's what that could be. That's what it could be. But what distinguishes it from the previous highs in the market is, of course, kind of the order of events that have happened. A high not followed by a slightly higher high that failed. Like last time, that's what happened. Here, high followed by a higher high, followed by a higher high that failed. What we can see on the way up towards the ultimate highs, there was a high followed by a higher low, which then failed to break down, but it wasn't the ultimate high on the charts. Let's go back to... This is another reason why this is a bit worrying here. We had a high at 20k, roughly, and then another slightly higher high at 20k, and that was the previous all-time high, and it looked a little bit like that back then, like, oh, maybe it could drop down, etc. Spent a goodly amount of time in that overall section before moving on. This is the sort of summer of 2019 high. Now, there was a high followed by a lower high in that section of time. Just wanted to point that out. And here in 2018, there was a high followed by a lower high before dropping on down. So it's not like a definitive thing. I'm just pointing out the fact, though, that the last couple of times, we had clear divergences as well at the highs. That was obvious. Here, quite obvious. And in the recent highs, well, you could make an argument to say that there was divergence. The argument that I like the most, by the way, is that this was a head and shoulders on the RSI, which should have been noticed. I should have pointed that out to everybody, actually, to be honest with you, back then. It doesn't really matter that I didn't, though, given what I did say was good enough, for sure. But you can see Batman on the RSI. You can see that there wasn't really the distinct divergence, and the reason why there wasn't the divergence, though, was because we didn't have a higher high thereafter. So that's why I wanted to point that out to people. Thought that was interesting about the current situation. Now, this could turn out to be like 2018 or something, tank down after, and all that, $60,000, that remains your cutoff point for being kind of short-term bullish. Yes, it could go to 58k. It would need to bounce very quickly. I'm not a fan of it going to 58k. I don't care about the fact that the previous time has been 20% drop downs and we didn't quite get there. We're in a post-ETF world, post-halving world, and I'm going to look for bigger goals, bigger prizes, right? Essentially, that's kind of what I'm saying. Looking for bigger goals and bigger prizes. Otherwise, I'm trading the range. And the range, ladies and gents, is from the high up there around about 73 down to the lows down there around about 59. And so far, the price having come back up to 64,000 leaves us around about midway on this trend. It's a little bit concerning that there's been a pullback in price. Staying above the 50 on the 4-hour time frame is therefore how I would recommend managing your risk. Essentially, we've dropped down below that just now, but the general point being really that so long as the prices are above 63k, we're kind of happy. But obviously up there at 67 that it got to the last couple of days, we would have needed to have taken profit. I think that was fairly clear. And maybe now we can go and move on up. Maybe our next target is 73,577, where we have a flash on the price. Maybe that's where we are aiming to next. However, it's not a very good value purchase right here, right now, and we need to be above the 50 simple in the 4 hour time frame. I think that's the way to manage it right now. That you can be bullish above the 50 simple in the 4 hour time frame, or you're looking for some other reason to be bullish, and just simply buying it off the back of coming down to test this Fibonacci area or whatever isn't really enough of a reason on its own. Now, you could have already been long, and this isn't enough of a reason to sell for you. That's fine if that's the case. Obviously, the time to buy it was here, and I think the main thing is that I did an amazing job last week. I think that's one of the main things. Definitely at least one of the main things. I reckon so. I reckon. Did we ever figure out what comes first? 30 moons around the Earth. Wow. Wow. Saturn's got 83? 83 at Saturn. Is that right? Or is it over 200? Somehow you managed to beat KP by a moon. I'm so much smarter than before. That's good. $80K by the end of May. Nice. I like your positivity. Ookie dookie. Moons, rocks, potato. What's the difference between a moon and a satellite? Says I am not a cat. There could be a good answer to this question. Okay, so not all satellites are moons, but all moons are satellites. So there's that. Hit the like button, everybody. That would be appreciated, as KP or as KT says in the live chat. I have my printer working if you've got any requests, and what I wanted to do in starting a little theme for today's live show, and I'll carry it over into the next live show, maybe the live show after that, is I wanted to create together with you a watch list. To create a watch list with you during our live shows. That's right, during our live shows. The watch list will be for an alternative to the crypto total charts. So that's what I was going to ask people about. What's a good selection of cryptocurrencies to put in a watch list for a nice idea on the health of the crypto market in the year 2024, looking towards 2025, something that'll last for a while? The reason for this was because there's a little bit of worrying in the air. Bitcoin made it to all-time highs and pulled back. the total market cap chart never made it to all-time highs, despite the fact that Dow Jones, SPX, Gold, Nasdaq, etc. did make it to all-time highs. In the recent pullback, the total market cap saw a pullback from highs to lows. Let's just do that. From around about here to around about here of around about 21, 22% or so. Others, now this should be a bigger drop. From its highs to its lows, saw a pullback of around about 40%. So the concern for me in crypto space right now is to do with the increased volatility that we've seen in the alt space, more so than in the Bitcoin space itself. In a time when there's been some uncertainty with regards to Bitcoin, with the halving coming up in a post-ETF world. That's my concern, the type of concern that doesn't sell YouTube videos, and but it's the sort of thing that I think about. And what I wanted to do then was to make a chart, or to make a selection of crypto tokens which would be like the others crypto chart, except made by us. Ones where if we were to look and see something happen in here, that we would awesome, cheers man, that's just printed. That if we were to see something happen in here on the watch list, that we would have a better idea that there's something going on in the crypto market space. Or not necessarily that, but that we would maybe have an idea which is like you know, which is a curated version of like looking at this sort of thing. So you want to see how the crypto market's doing. We've all seen the heat maps, etc. Then you might want to look at how the top whatever coins are performing. And you've got coins like Starknet here at number 95. It's a relatively new offering in the crypto space. If I go to its all-time chart here, we can see that it only goes back as far as February 2024. So it's like new, and it's in the top 100. And the question kind of evolves out about the others chart here, and the total 2 and the total 3, as to what specific coins are in there and what movements within those coins do we think are worth being aware of, so that we can we can form our own list and then see how if things are moving. So I wanted to make a list with people that we would put things onto, and it can include the likes of that Starknet coin. Well, there's a failed Head and Shoulders. Inverted. Right, so this is in the top 100, and maybe there's things out there that should be in the top 100 which aren't. Maybe there's things which are in the top 100 but shouldn't be, and that's all fine. Maybe when it comes to kind of making assessments about charts like total, that without having full transparency about what actually is in the total list from TradingView, it might be worth maybe just making our own and adding to it and taking out of it, so that we've got an idea of a sort of index on the crypto market. So it doesn't need to be official or anything. It's just we could have a list like this, and then we could think, well, what coins could we add to this list which what coins could we add to this list which could actually, you know, um, give us a better insight as to how markets are moving. So I'll take suggestions on that. Bart Top on Stark. Maybe it was, man. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Are you talking about Bitcoin? I don't know. I don't know on Stark. It's just so like you want to say Bart Top, but it's just so new. I mean, the thing's just so new. It's only. It's not. I don't know. Here was one in the middle of all of that crap. Okay, so KP donated. Let's go back to our other screen. People will be tired of me up in there. Get back in your box, Rocky. Okay. Sorry, folks. Kieran's Ghost 92 super chatted 7.99 Australian dollars for the digital smoke fund. Can you check on Aunt USDT today? Thanks, Rocky. So KP, is he a bit of a traditionalist? Is he a bit of a 2019 type of 2018, 2019 type of guy? Is that right? Is that fair to say about UKP? Aunt. Whoops, sorry. Pushed the shortcut keys on my key on the wrong screen. So yeah, is that right? Is that fair to say? Are you a bit of a 2019 crypto guy? What with ontology, the request that he made there being one of those types of coins. Let's just go back and see when it started trading here on Binance. 2018, July 2018. Unfortunately, didn't get to be a star of any sort of alt season or any of that. By the way, for people who are wondering why am I making that assessment about KP? Well, here's another coin that KP likes, Raven, which again was that 2019, 2018, 2019. Just a couple of these ones from back then. Maybe that's how you like to look at markets. In which case, maybe you'd like to add some of them to that list, so we can see sort of coins from the previous decade. How are they performing? I don't know what the list should really be called though, or what its function really necessarily is. I tried to explain the function there. I think most people who were listening, so to speak, would understand what I was talking about. So anyway, KP ontology. This is the weekly chart. Had a massive rise up, massive fall back down. Obviously losing 90 odd percent of its gains. That was a tough one for it. Then it came into lows in around about October 2023. So actually, it managed to push up during the time that I don't know. Actually, I don't know how it did perform compared to other ones. October 2023. That's actually probably when most of them started moving. So it's moving with the markets, right? Moved up, hit off its 200 period simple moving average in the weekly time frame as it happens, and then pulled back down. Has maintained this trend line. Broadly speaking, has maintained this trend line. This push outside of it makes me wonder if there's some study to be had on that, but that's not for today. Trying off the 50 simple there. Daily time frame. That whole zone where the price was bouncing around for a couple of days in here seems to be a whole zone. If I go back, you can see that that's actually been the case a number of times in its past. So that's definitely something to be aware of, I think, for that. Where that thought came from was, I'm looking here in the daily time frame, and I was thinking to myself, is there some historical thing going along here with this where they had support there? Do I see anything? And then I looked and I saw that there was this, kind of relationship there. So this is worth pointing out, lows and highs just here. Because I'm going to go on to do a Fibonacci retracement on this, obviously. And here's another one to be aware of up there. Almost its entire price history. Not quite, though. 236 is where we are. We hit off the 50% nearly. Back down. Top end of that zone is the 382. A lot of confirmation about that line. Quite a lot there. This is what obviously kind of happened here, is that the prices got over exuberant. Thanks so much to Spencer for the $20 Canadian. I'll check out your message in just a moment whenever it prints out from my machine. So thanks for that. Good to see you here with us for a live show. Glad to see you, mate. So yeah, so what happened here? Obviously, we pushed outside of that zone, came back down. If you put Bollinger Bands on, you'd see the same thing. In terms of how this obviously was where a squeeze began, but I don't think that the trend is over. That's what I show people, I suppose. That's you, Spencer, mate. Just printed out. So I'll get round to that in just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to stay positive about this one as well. Obviously, KP, this depends on the Bitcoin scenario, right? As rough guidelines for you, while Bitcoin is above $60,000, I'm fairly positive, and it's above $60,000 right now, so I'm fairly positive right now. This is an upward trend. This is the logarithmic chart. If I put it on the linear chart, then you might see more clearly that this area of the upward trend has largely been broadening out during its upward move. It clearly has got three different ways of looking at this thing. If we just disregard the area of the most volatility when it pushed out and hit the 50% Fibonacci retracement area as being the saying that this is creating a norm. It's not creating it as a norm. It's not within the confines of this trend, but it is certainly showing the potential for this thing to move when it wants to. And then if it did actually go up next to the 618, then I think then at that point you could look towards this having a sort of broadening aspect to it, like this KP, to point out to you, as overall. I think that might be worth being aware of, which is why I'm talking about it right now, but it's not the main thrust of what I'm looking at, because what I'm looking at is something which has returned to a trend line a couple of times at this point, and I'm looking to see if this thing can continue up. So anywhere below this line here, you don't want the price to be, where I'm drawing those white squiggly lines. Anywhere in that zone, you don't want it to be in there. And that's fairly handy at the minute because that lines up with the 236 where I'm drawing this white horizontal line. So you don't want to see it below that white horizontal swiggle there, right? And that's going to be what the story is. However, I'm still going to stay positive on this one because while Bitcoin's above 60,000, I'm going to stay positive on all of them, and I'm going to take the increase in the volatility in this section here with the same grain of salt, and it's a big bucket of salt. It's like a canister, a keg of it. But it's this goes along with the alts having dropped down. The alts dropped down by 40% in a time when the total market cap and Bitcoin dropped down by 20%. So there's that double volatility that's happening, and yeah, I've got a feeling that this will actually turn into a big old messy spliff looking type formation on the charts there, but I'm primarily concerned about risk management, and from that point of view, then anything which kind of goes beyond that type of zone there for sure, then I'm not interested in any longer. So like, dips down towards that area, that's okay, but below 23, I'm not interested in the thing, and I'd be aiming up towards 0.1, 10 cents. That's the kind of the target on that one. Staying positive on this and being aware of that trend. I do think that there are things to be aware of. Like, let me just point out that you've got stopping volume. Let's go up to the 2-day time frame to kind of merge this all in. So you've got like what could be considered stopping volume here, but also again, it could be considered like starting volume. At what is ostensibly the beginning potentially of a broader term time frame trend. So I'm going to hold the jury's out on this right now. It could be stopping volume. It did come in, it was a high, it's had a big pullback since. Managing my trade using the upward sloping line there. I'm looking and saying that its prices make it up above 0.0435. Then actually I'm looking for it to go up towards 10 cents as a general move. Could be very good, but clearly there's a lot of ants and pants at the minute. The volatility is high on this one, and it could absolutely tank. So I'm keeping an eye on the broader market as well, but it's an interesting one. Why what? Oh, wait a minute, I'll have this bloody VPN on, who's found the quality not good because of the VPN thing. Sorry about that. Sorry about it, mucho. Just a second. Just had to load my printer up again. How are we doing for time? 43 minutes. Okay, cool. So Spencer, buddy, $20. Thanks so much for your Canadian $20. Hey, glad I caught you. Glad you caught me too, mate. I swear, YouTube doesn't notify me properly. Wondering about TRB, Teller, crypto. Hit the bell button. I only do videos like once a week anyway, so you're not going to get swamped with things. If anybody's not hit the bell button, hit the bell button now. Just do it. I can be your first bell. Let's pop that bell cherry together. You and me, baby. Let's do it, Spence. Right, so what are we talking here? We've got TRB, trailer. Yes. This is a very interesting crypto. Good choice, mate, for the interesting. Let's bring this up. Let's bring this up. Right, so we've had highs at $631. And that was in sort of the turn of the year at New Year's Eve, $631. Current price is $56.02. Lows recently at $40. From that high to that low, it's down 93%. Bearing in mind that from the previous high to the low, over a long period of time, this is it for people who haven't seen the chart before, Spencer, so this is the other introduction, it was down 95%, and to get up to its target, let's just take it from that low to that high, it moved up an astounding 9,500%. So this is something which is an interesting chart, and a lot of bulls will have been trapped up in this area, right? Undoubtedly. Now, when this thing moved up, it moved up in nice chunks, you know, up, and then found support along the way with what really was like a nice sort of parabolic type trend line here. It found support at 100, which was good, definitely good for it, and then went on up towards $600. I wish I'd got in on that one, by the way. That would have been a good move to get in on. I wasn't. Don't know why. I think maybe he was trading Sol at the time and I wasn't in on that. Anywho, regardless, back down. Let's just have a quick look, by the way, at another cryptocurrency in the middle of this, because Velo, which is currently at 21, if I just bring up the 1 hour time frame, we should see a huge drop down at some point recently. No, am I thinking of a different one? What was H bar, not Velo, H bar USDT. Right, yeah. So this was the one from yesterday. Shorten this one, and it had a huge run up. And this is the classic kind of it's moved too far too soon thing. It's going at what goes up must come down type of proposition. Here in the 24-hour time frame, you can see this is obviously got a bit of that, kind of speaking back to KP again, a bit of that kind of broadening aspect to it as well, which makes sense with the increase in the crypto volatility recently. Just to show people about, is there a kind of a reminder to take profit on things when you're trading, essentially. I guess that was, but I would have, taken profit during that 600 at some point, maybe even at 300 or 400 or 200, who knows. So yeah, right now what we want to know is just where this position of this low came in at vis-a-vis the move. Let's measure from that ultimate low just there to the high, just to see where that lines up with. So we pretty much came in for a golden pocket retrace, currently finding resistance at what would have been the 50% retrace area. Let's see where the 236 is from the high to the low. And yes, I am including the high. I know that it'll be vastly different on various different charts, but I am including the high when I'm doing this. And 236 just there. It's clearly significant. 77 bucks. You see, the thing is, like, this isn't one where you can say, like even over here, right? You got what was a downward trend. Now you could have looked to have said maybe it's broken the downward trend several times. Like, for instance, most notably in here, where you'd have been like, okay, so we've come down here, we've done this, and we've gone in for a retest and everything. But it just didn't give up the ghost, and overall it was a downward trend that whole time, ultimately. And on this, you've got this section here. Oops, this section here. I've drawn a bit of a strange thing. So anyway, this section here where, yeah, you could say it was an upward trend. This section here where obviously you could say it was a downward trend, but combined together, they're not like, a trend. We've had a massive kind of, I don't know what this is, as a TP. A TP has been drawn on the charts by some Native American people. So like, what's my prediction on it? Well, if Bitcoin and everything else stays good, right, I'm going to be positive on this. If you're not in a position on this one and you're willing to wait for confirmation, which really you should be, then you might find you might find that waiting until the prices are above 77 pays you dividends in terms of your risk reward. This movement down, which has happened so far, does have a nice recovery aspect to it. This is a 2-day time frame, so I'll look at this on the 4-hour time frame so you can see what I'm talking about. But I would point out while we're here that this is very much still bear flag territory. So I'll just kind of draw something like that on here before dropping down to the 4-hour time frame so that we don't forget it during this period of time, okay? Because it would be easy to forget that. So as you can see, Spencer, this on the 2-day time frame was a bear flag. You know, they could easily drop all the way down to $20. That wouldn't surprise me at all. As I suppose my measure in there is not very accurate, but I'm just saying it could easily drop down a good chunk. Let's actually just use this as a quick guide. $25 could happen, right? So we've been pretty clear about how this is potentially a bear flag. And we're not going to forget that, hopefully, while I go on to then talk about positive stuff. Because we've had a nice enough recovery here so far. Nice enough. That area there was quite square. Broke outside of it, come back for a retest. It's quite negative at the minute, though, to be honest with you, man. But it's really easy long because honestly, if this drops down any further, then I expect it to at least go down to 52. We're at 55 at the minute. I think that, you know, keeping your if you were to long it, then you'd have to have a stop loss which is super tight in here. So even though I'm looking at the 4-hour time frame, it still doesn't even give you like the clean picture for what the trade is right here, right this minute, Spencer. Although you might be thinking about this might help at least put it into context the next day or two as if this fails, which is very likely. Hence why I've made it so tight. So the idea here is that, yeah, you know, this has had a big pullback. If it comes down into this prior range of this block of price just in here, if it comes into this range again here, then it'll probably at least go down towards, well, let's just call it $50, right? So there's a 10% potential dump on the go. Nevertheless, it might just be fine. It might just find support in here. There is a long side trade possibly for us to then continue up, which would then form kind of a block like this, followed by, I suppose, you know, this kind of affair just here. So this is like this thing number one, and then the second thing was this, and then it's pushed outside of it. So, you know, if it then does do something like this, then it brings all of this here into the one picture, which so this does make sense from a sorry, I'm sorry, Spencer, by the way, if I'm giving you too much information that makes things less clear for you or whatever, but there is the potential for this, which is on the 2-day time frame, like a bear flag, to actually fail as a bear flag and move on up, giving you a nice potential risk reward trade with a you know, bearing in mind that any movement down, let's say 555 and below, 555 would be an ideal buy price, but anything below 555 you would be out of a trade because it could easily drop 10% thereafter, with a target up there at $76, because we know that 77 is actually where, and let's just call it 77.7, right? Once the prices have gone past the triple sevens, then we know that there's a strong chance then that there's a move at the very least towards $130, right? So this thing, if we get past this point here, moving towards this next zone, that is quite likely. Moving towards the next zone thereafter is also quite likely as well, bearing in mind that it could end up looking like that to do it. So this becomes a different trade for you then, Spencer, right? So this would move from your kind of your smaller term trade ideas into your longer term ones if you're going to let your winner run across a long period of time. And that would be the extremely tight entry for you to get on it. But obviously that means that if you were thinking along those lines, that you would need to have potentially several entries to actually catch that, and the next one might come down closer to actually here at this low at around about $50. So I'd be looking either there or there. So there's two potential small term trade setup ideas for a move towards 77. Then afterwards, as a general thrust in idea, is that you'd have some sort of trade like this, which could potentially carry on up towards one of these higher targets. It could happen, so long as we've got the bullishness in Bitcoin remaining. However, the fact of the matter is that any movements down past those zones, it's got extremely tight risk reward on. Extremely tight, for a good reason, and that reason being that if it does actually break down past this low, it becomes a bear flag again. So just to zoom back in so that you can see in terms of the story that we were discussing, that there's a potential for this thing to be in three phases happening just now, which was like phase 1 is this rectangle block, phase 2 is this channel out of the rectangular block, phase 3 maybe is the increase in volatility as we're seeing on all altcoins, which actually then turns this whole thing into this shape. And if we just replace those lines then with for that third part with this instead, then you'll see that this is why this is how the story all connects together. If it does indeed fail, right? Because this would be what we started off talking about on the 2-day time frame. Right, that's what the third thing looks like. So my summary on this one, Spencer, because I know I covered a lot of ground, is that actually, you know, I'm willing to be positive on this one, but I'd have extremely tight stop losses. I'm talking in terms of like 1% stop loss, because the move that could come afterwards could be 10%. There is a short opportunity for you to be had here, looking at this in terms of the perspective of, does this look like a bear flag? Something like the 2-day time frame shows you it absolutely does, and it could target down as low as $25. I know that seems crazy with highs just as recently as the start of this year up there at $630, but it could happen. There'd be a lot of uncertainty in this coin given the volatility that it's had in its price history recently, so people would have a lot of panic about them, and then I don't think that helps when it comes to looking to sustain rallies. However, with the recent price happening, it does give the uncertainty, does help increase the likelihood for that volatility increasing and persisting. So we can therefore say that that while what's not going to help sustained price rallies in terms of trends might lead to sustained price movements during extreme volatility periods, which may well pick up on this coin, and that we could aim down to those lows, but with two really tight entries, it's actually possible for it to go up to 77. It goes up to 77, and then it's a different game. Why? Because this bear flag thing no longer the case. Instead, what you're looking at is the potential for us to trend up towards targets such as $250, right, where the 618 golden pocket is. But I think a more realistic target there is $117. And I think that would be, or even just $100, where 50 simple is currently to $100, and that would be another 50% gain. So if there was a good trade here, it would lead to another good trade and lead to another good trade, and that's the way that I would handle that one, Spencer. Okie dokie. Hopefully that was it's nice, man, to kind of reward you, so to speak, with a better. But are you still there, everybody, by the way? Just let me know that I'm still streaming, because it doesn't look like it on one of my screens right now. Thanks, kitties. You're always so freaking on it, kitties. I love it. Thanks so much. Great. Kitties is brilliant. Thanks, man. Okay, so Yeah, so great, excellent, nice one. So then you heard what I was talking about there, Spencer. That's good. I'm glad, right? Because I think I went into quite a bit of detail there. I'd be sad if that was just completely lost to bad internet management on my part. I think it's quite interesting, TA, and it was an interesting chart. It's a pleasure to look at that one. Another one that people haven't asked for recently, which I think is a good call to ask for if anybody was wanting to, is Link USDT, which is like another super interesting chart. Just because you know, just because it is. It's just it is interesting, right? Um, Okay, so vis-a-vis, thank you so much for $20. If gratitude be wine for the soul, we should all be drunk on Wednesdays. Thank you for every week of TA and learning Rocky. What? That was just to be. That's so nice, by the way. If gratitude be wine for the soul, we should all be drunk on Wednesdays. Aw. Thanks. Appreciate it. Awesome. Thanks. Well, hopefully that helped you out, Spencer, man. A lot of chat about re entry there. If you want any more chat about it, let me know. I think I covered the broad strokes for sure. For sure, covered the broad strokes on that one. Thanks to those who analysed on Polaris. Didn't buy, then heard the worst earnings report I've ever heard. Oof. That's not good. Polaris. Yay for Spanish friends. Yeah. Polaris. Wow, yeah. What is this junk then? Consumer durables. Well, they did better in their earnings than people thought they would. Can't have been the worst earnings report you've ever heard. You can't have been the worst ever. Can't have been the worst ever. You get worse from the likes of Mullen and stuff like that, don't you? Right, we're at an hour mark. Okay, we're at the hour mark. So let me know if you want me to take a look at anything. You have to send in a fax request, right? I'm going to try and make that video that I was going to make for the looters and moochers as I call them these days. But actually, I love them, and I'm trying to appeal to their hearts and to get them to come over and join me in my lovely community because I love them, and that's the truth. So, oh, look at that. That's actually, what chart is this? Quick review of last week. Drawn head and shoulders and pattern. Explained why 40 coil alone is not getting traction. We have found the pivot for bullish trend. We have identified more than one reason. Oh wow, we did such a good job. We really did such a good job. Such a great job. Well done, everybody. Well done, everyone. Well done, everyone. done, well done. So don't forget, by the way, folks, that I want to make this watch list. Crypto index coins that you think give a better impression as to the overall movement of the market. I don't know if what the best way to describe it is, but I'm looking for to build like a crypto tracker watch list. So get involved and make your suggestions. The next move for Bitcoin is $76,000. I'm doing it. I'm staying strong. I'm staying bullish, staying strong and bullish over here. Look at these diamond Bitcoin encrusted hands. Why? Well, I'm going to explain the reasons for that. Today's video about Bitcoin is all about the 50 simple moving average, and I'm looking for the potential for a move towards 76, but I'm very, very aware of what I would do if prices drop below $60,000, and I tell you, it could be quite bearish. Bitcoin chart. Momentum, everything else is obviously gone bearish. Okay, the prices of Bitcoin have dropped down in what could conceivably be a downward trend, which is starting to roll over, where Bitcoin prices look like that, and it all goes negative, and everybody cries and goes blah and cries. That's the Bitcoin negative chart, right? And I'm actually saying, hold on a second, let's stay bullish just for just now. Just for just now, okay? Let's build in a couple of kind of risk management zones around it and know when to change our mind. You know, we can stay very confident up until that point when we can become extremely not confident in 1 second. And figure all that out together just now. That's the idea, right? So generally speaking, while the prices are above these lows, I'm going to be very positive. Okay, so if we move back down towards 59,000 or even 58,000, I'm okay. I can stay long during that, but I can't any below that level, right? So let's just draw this in and say that my cutoff is 58,000. And let's say that my ideal entry price, is even less than 58,000. What am I talking about? But in terms of just staying with this kind of the idea that I'm building up here for this video and the chat that we're having, I'm going to say that my ideal entry is actually at around about 64,000. Sorry, what am I saying? 63,000. 63,000. I think we could shave a few bucks off our entry and get to 63. Now, there's a good chance we get a bounce off of 67,000 something, where the 50 simple period moving average is, but my target on this one is actually all the way up towards $76,000. When we get towards $76,000, we will have done a few things. One is we'll have taken out the all-time high, which is over there. Another is that we'll have made it back into this, generally speaking, more upward trending, but actually kind of more boring price action area, where price can be a bit more tightly confined and move on up like that, and be all doing all that thing that y'all love to happen. Instead of the stuff that makes you feel scared, which is these big candle movements that we've seen, because we're in a slightly different regime right now with regards to the Bitcoin price. In fact, what I'm looking at with regards to this Bitcoin pricing is us being in a regime which shows that we're in a higher volatility period right now for Bitcoin. Okay, and if the prices actually do take out these lows, here, then instead of like, neatly shuffling around in these tight areas of tightness that the price was in for the longest time in this prior regime that it was in, actually while prices are below the 76,000 price point at the minute, they've got a far higher range of movement, and it's actually more like this. So if the prices drop down below 63,000, then I think the prices could easily go down to 57,000. I think that could absolutely easily happen, right? So that's why actually my long position would be kind of like 63,000 kind of thing, right? And then so we're managing risk really tight on that one, and then I'm aiming up towards 76. Gives a massive risk to reward of 12 over 12 to 1, on that trade. So that's potentially really great, and I'm going to stay bullish on it. Now, what's the story? I said at the start of this clip here that it would be about the 50 simple period moving average. I've not talked about that yet, so well done if you stayed with me till now. Hit the like button. Hit that like button just now. The reason why is because this is this regime that we're in, which is higher volatility, is also when the prices are below the 50 simple period moving average. Let's just cast our mind back to the last time the prices are below the 50 simple period moving average, and it was over here. Just hide the drawings so you can see it's over here, right? And that's also whenever we were outside of this the tight part of my channel, right? So just look when the drawings come back on, you can see again, tight area of channel where all that rainbow of color is, right? We broke down below that area, below the 50 simple. We made our way back up, but when it was below here, much bigger volatility. I'll hide the drawings and show the drawings again so you can see how there is a different regime. There's two different regimes on the go. Hide and show them up here so you can see, right? So the story here is right that we're below the 50 simple, and I think that's important to point out, right? Because we're in a time period where this is actually really quite crucial, because this is the spot Bitcoin price. Let me just bring up ARC B, for example, one of the Bitcoin ETFs, and you can see here the 50 simple period moving average. That's actually providing support for us right now. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I'm going to remain bullish on the Bitcoin price, because it's just, it's just above that on some of the metrics. It's not just that one that's above it. There's other ETFs. Here's another example of an ETF which is above the 50 simple period moving average. You've got the futures chart, BTC 1 exclamation mark, which isn't actually above it right now. Is it not? No, the 50 symbol's at 65k on that one, but we're so close. We're close here, and it's a different story to the basic chart here. This is from previous videos. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I said that we could turn into a big block of cheese, and it has. It's turned into a big block of cheese, ladies and gentlemen. Went all the way down to that low. That's funny. And then we bounced off the 50 simple period moving average. So that's providing resistance for us at the moment. And that's what I'm looking to. Okay, so that's the Bitcoin story. There's videos popping up here to suggested videos. Watch more of my content. Hit that like button if you haven't already. And join my Discord community. And join us for a live show sometime where you can send in a fax request and I'll read it for you on the show. We just got one from BMJ Shadow. I'm actually live right now. By the way, this is why there's all those words up above me as I make this clip. So tune in for one of these sometime, and I'll see you again soon. Hit the like. Okay, so that's... Oh, wait, stop recording. Right, there we go. So that's my video. What do you think? I don't know. Maybe make it again if I want to. Is this Bitcoin a 1, 2, 3 on the daily? On the last drop, you have one at the beginning and a 1 in the middle and a 1, 2 as of now on the last top. Ooh, is this on Bitcoin a 1, 2, 3 on the daily? On the last drop, did I... BMJ, I'm going to be honest here, I don't understand the question properly, but that's my deficiency because I'm live right now, so I can't dedicate my brain to that. When I was talking about that 1, 2, 3 thing, I was talking about whatever Spencer asked for, which was called TRB, right? Wasn't it? Yeah, TRB, Taylor. So maybe you're asking about, is the same sort of thing happening on this? And that was kind of around about the idea of this being a bear flag. So this would be your drop down, and then this would be the bear flag. And if that's what you're asking about, essentially, then yeah, that's absolutely also the case right now, if that's what you're asking about. Let me just check in the chat box. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So yeah, it could totally be that, man. It could have evolved that way. Completely could evolve that way. The 1 hour time frame last week, we spoke about it coming down, pushing outside of the zone, coming back down for a double bottom area just here, making all the 58k lovers, cry because they got it wrong. We spoke about all that in advance, and then moving on up. You could say that we've done the same thing, by the way, in terms of like, here's an upward trend line, and that any failure to break that, so a move towards 67k which fails, could actually precipitate the movement down. And we have got a slight change in the aspect. There isn't like that rectangle that the other one had that then moved into this, which then moved into the thing. It wasn't quite the same as the other chart, but the principle is there. I'm thinking I'm going to remain. I'm just going to remain. I mean, sometimes there's a choice you have to make, right? And I'm not doing it in a way which is like hiding behind some magic curtain, right? I'm telling you that I've told people over the last month now or more month and a half my reasons for staying bullish in a time which could easily become bearish. If I'd have shorted it at the start, just purely based on some random arbitrary thing, then right now I would be in profit, okay? But that's not a particularly good trade. Instead, we use technical analysis to maximize our trading, and during this period of time, there's been like quite a few trades that people could make within this section. The big move obviously happens if we get outside of this massive rectangle of cheese that we've been trapped into, and I'll be happy to flip bearish on that with moves below 58k, like I've been explaining. But while we're in this zone here, it could go either way. And the point really is, in the run up to this, I've been bullish. The halving has happened since. It's a big fundamental thing for crypto, and I'm going to just remain bullish until I get a reason telling me not to be. Not because some scared bitch ass noob trader on YouTube tells me that they're scared, but because I myself have got a reason to be negative about it, and I'm not there yet, right? And that's where we are. That's where we are with Bitcoin. Okay. The question referring to near USDT at the neckline now, the position at the bottom right shoulder. That didn't work out. Well, it didn't actually get high enough to take the trade, really, so that's fair enough. Uh, in the end, that's essentially what happened. On near, broke down. This looks like far too big for the measured move. Don't know why that's like that. To assume that that isn't the measured move. Got most of it. Okay, folks. Think I've come to the end of my show. I might make another recording of my Bitcoin thing, because I don't know if I have had good pacing in the last one or not. Which chart did I have my channel on? Here. That was very good technical analysis. Sarah, you might remember that screen if you're watching right now. You said, can do all patterns lead on to other patterns? Are they always connected up? And I talked about the course, and I talked about how this was like a diamond that pushed on down the way, and then we didn't follow back up on it. So just, then it turned into this inverted head and shoulders idea, which then pushed on up, became, well, that was a bit of a nothing, I suppose. But and then, I mean, it wasn't nothing though. Clearly there was this, which did have an effect. A little bit of kind of confluence in there, but a bit of inflection in there. Obviously pushed on past it. Wasn't much of a big thing, that. Right. Do I do it again? I suppose I might as well. Although I can't really be bothered. I can't remember if the last one was good enough or not, so I'll just do it real quick. Okay, so I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. I'm aiming towards 76,000 buckaroonies. And I understand if you think that that makes me crazy, but there are reasons for it. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about the 50 simple moving average and how that's dominating the price right now. I'm going to look back at the last time that it was dominating the price and what we thought was happening with the price action then and how that is similar to what's happening just now. I'm going to talk about the volatility in the Bitcoin price recently because it's changed, and we're going to build up a couple of reasons about this and land on where we think the price of Bitcoin is going to go next. So what do you want to hear about first? Is it going to be the 50 simple period moving average? Is it going to be the volatility? I think that I can point out right now with the 50 simple period moving average that on the 4 hour time frame, this is kind of me getting the green light. If we take it out, at 64,777, 65,000, then I'm looking to play the momentum short term towards 67. In terms of my broader perspective, though, right now, I'm actually managing risk really quite tightly. Because I think if the price drops down below 63,000, I'm not really interested in it. And the actual ideal entry comes closer to 63,000 than where it is right now. That would be ideal for me. But for the move towards 76,000 bucks, in terms of if the momentum happens and I'm making a small trade here, I think there's a good sort of risk to reward opportunity as I'm showing on the screen right now. But I am looking broader market for this video towards a move towards 76,000 bucks, and this is going to involve then understanding a couple of different things, right? And it's not super complicated. 3 things. One is that I'm bullish on Bitcoin, and the reason for that is because we've had major events happen in the Bitcoin fundamentals, such as the halving, and there's been a really long bull market up until now. So until such times as the bull market has stopped being a thing, then I'm going to remain bullish. And for me, it kind of stops being a thing below $58,000 in the here and now. So in the here and now, which is what people always ask me about, I'm bullish, right? And I've showed you in terms of my ideas about this one, how I would manage this very tight if it moves up above for a momentum trade, and actually looking to try and pick it up at around 63, I suppose, for a move towards 76 if this actually doesn't manage to push above the 50 simple period moving average in the here and now. So the two things I want to talk about beyond that are the 50 simple period moving average and the volatility, the way that it's changed recently. And I'm going to look at the way the volatility has changed recently last, right? Because I think that I can show you the 50 simple moving average and why it's important right now in the next kind of 3 screens quite easily. Right now here in the 4-hour time frame, I've showed you in terms of my target, and I've repeated that a few times. But if we look at it on the daily time frame, we can see that right now the 50 simple is this dotted blue line. It's quite faint, but it's there on your screen. It's just there where the crosshair is. That's given us resistance for Bitcoin right now. That's resistance. Okay, and what could be kind of happening is that there could be a sort of inverted head and shoulders in this region here. So I'm just going to draw a happy kind of face here. Around it, and the top end here, just where the hairline is on my kind of happy face, is where the 50 simple period moving average is hanging out. And I think that from that you can take a target, roughly speaking, we'll just call it that, and pop it up here, and that also takes us towards the 76,000 price point. And that's the reasons why I'm looking at this and thinking that it's super important. But there's also as well another way that this is currently actually acting as support, not resistance. So in this screen it's resistance, but if we look at a couple of ETFs, here's a Bitcoin ETF, it's support. Same time frame, 24-hour time frame. And you can see here support. So there's a couple of different ETFs showing us the same thing, except it's acting as support, not resistance. So I'm staying a bit more positive on that, right? So you can see why I'm starting to think the way I'm thinking. I think you are. And the last thing to really explain is what happened last time the prices were below the 50 simple and this relationship with the volatility recently. So to show the volatility, I've got this series of lines in the background of the chart. This colorful rainbow at the top here, great for seeing the tighter volatility regime. When the prices are up there, it's tight, and as you can see here, you can spend days where you're moving just in tight ranges, then you move up to the next chunk and you spend time, and it's been like this for quite some time. When we're outside of this zone, and specifically right now, that's when the prices dropped below 70,000, they went into a different regime where price actually, started moving around in quite big chunks. So, if I take this kind of squiggly line here as a rough measuring stick and compare it to the past, that's way more than it did typically during that time. And then afterwards you can see this is actually just how much it does. So if the prices drop down below my 63,000 entry point, this is one of the reasons why I've got that stop loss so tight, is because I think it could then drop down to 57, and then it could go down from 57 on down to the next area around about 52, and then from 52 all the way down to test the 200 simple period moving average, this orange dotted line here on the daily time frame. And that makes an awful lot of sense to me. So I'm going to keep my risk management really, really tight. But as you can see here, if we look back to the last time it was outside of this volatility regimen in the way that the price worked was over here. And if I drop to the 4-hour time frame, you can see that there's actually a fairly similar story. We dropped below the 50 period moving average, and then we got this inverted head and shoulders type setup, pushed back out, and when we took out the structure of the prior trend, we started to move up without moving down significantly throughout this regime of higher volatility until we made it back into this more condensed volatility section. And if I go to the daily time frame, you can see that that is where the prices were last below the 50 simple. So when they were above the 50 simple in that tighter regime, and then in that tighter regime below the 50 simple in there, potential for head and shoulders. This head and shoulders measured move target takes us towards $76,000. That actually does a couple of things all at once. Puts in a new all-time high compared to the previous all-time high, and then as well it takes price back into this region where we would have, of course, the kind of the continuation of the previous way that we're used to Bitcoin being. Really, most days since it started to trend up from October 2023, or indeed, in fact, some from even before then, we've had a much tighter periods of volatility than what we've had over the last, couple of weeks. And I'm looking to see if we can get back into that zone again. And this is whenever more complex questions about the 100,000, 110, 130, all that stuff kind of starts happening again. And if it breaks down below, then 60,000 down to a target of 48,000. There's 12,000 bucks in there. I'm sure I could find a short at some point during that in order to profit off of the movement towards the downside. So I've sketched out where the trades are for us here in this video. And just a quick recap, we're talking the 50 simple period moving average is resistance on the spot chart, but it's also support on the ETF chart. Interesting. I'm positive because the previous trend was positive. We've had positive fundamental change for Bitcoin, so I'm remaining positive. And then we combine that with the fact that there's this potential inverted head and shoulders that happened below the 50 simple the last time we were below it, and it looks like it's happening again. We also can see that the increased volatility that happened the last time we were below the 50 simple is happening again. We can see that the movement, the expected range target for the head and shoulders is back into that higher volatility period again. And those are the reasons why I'm thinking what I'm thinking about Bitcoin right now. Here's a couple of videos that you could watch to see more of my content. Hit the like button on this one. Join the Discord, https://discord.gg/rockyoutcrop, and be a part of our trading community. Thanks for watching. Okay, so I reckon the second one probably is fine, and I'll use that. And we're done for our day today. Great. Yeah. Anybody else? Have I missed anything that I really need to see in the chat? Oh, we have a responsible adult with us. We have a responsible adult. Thank goodness. We've been waiting for you to arrive. Now you can take care of us. Oh, thank goodness. We have one at last among us. Okay. Great. I'll see you all next time then.